Let's get started. I'd like to introduce KYZEN Zone Joe McChesney.
Good morning, William, and I'd like to thank our guest for joining us today in KYZEN's Tech to Tech concerning the ABCs of solvent. Today, we're going to focus on the EPA regulations update as several things are changing in the market. And we're going to do things a little bit different today. Instead of doing ABCs, we're going to do CBAs. We're going to do things a little different. With C being the compliance. If you look at the federal laws governing the use of solvents and regulations, these are established and developed and actually enforced by the EPA as well as OSHA. Today's degreasing solvents are a mixture of old and new. A lot of changes in the solvent world, but traditional solvents are still being used. However, a lot of the solvents, such as the chlorinated and brominated, are disappearing fast due to either corporate environmental regulations or choice. A lot of the other solvents have already been regulated out of existence, such as the Freon and AK225. And with that, new safer solvents have been formulated. These formulas may include HFEs, HFOs, or trans blends. But why the change? Well, the major impact is environmental. It is the deciding factor for most solvents used today. Laws governing the use of hazardous cleaning solvents such as NPB, TCE, perchloroethylene, trichloroethylene, all of these are regulated and under current review by the EPA. Several states, such as Minnesota and New York, have recently banned the use of TCE. And that leads you to question, are other states going to follow? I will assume so. It appears that change is coming, and a change is going to come pretty soon. And the driving force behind this change, it is TSCA. That's an acronym for the Toxic Substance Control Act. This is a law enacted by the EPA to preserve chemical use and mitigate the risk to users. In 2018, there was a document published that had 10 chemicals on this. And 5 of those were traditional degreasing solvent chemicals. And those 5 were NPB, methylene chloride, NMP, perchloroethylene, and TCE, trichloroethylene. If you look at some of the recent EPA and state actions, TCE has been banned in Minnesota and banned in New York in 2021. NPB has had a total ban in Europe enacted in July of 2020. If you look at methylene chloride, perchloroethylene, and even HFCs, you'll find that all of these are targets. And if you're using these solvents, you need to consider conversion now. In 2020, while the rest of the world was slowing down due to the pandemic, EPA was actually fairly busy. The TSCA group formulated the chemical risk evaluations, and in June, it was for methylene chloride, August, NPB, November, TCE, December, PCE, and December, NMP. All of these solvents are the 5 that were previously listed. If you're using these solvents, we strongly recommend you get a copy of the chemical risk evaluation for your particular solvent. Why? Because if you read these documents, you'll find that there's some direct statements with warnings that the use of these substances presents unreasonable risk to human health. This is very strong wording. Example of copies of the reports you'll see on the screen. You can easily obtain these from the EPA sites. Your probably local DNR may have a copy of them. If you're using these solvents, I recommend you get a copy of them and keep for your files and study and review them. So what happens next? Well, in 2020, the chemical evaluation reports were released, and those reports basically stated what the EPA thought needed to occur to reduce, restrict, or eliminate the unreasonable risk. The time frame is 1 year from the official release date for that action plan to be developed. And the final rule is due 2 years from the official release date. So again, the clock is ticking. The B section of our presentation today, be proactive, be prepared, because what's next? Phase 1 has already been completed for specific solvents. Phase 2 is underway now, if you look at the time frame. And phase 3 is expected in 2022 as per the law. So if you're using solvent for cleaning and you choose to stay with solvent, solvent cleaning does have a future. but that future is going to be different. So the key factors you look at for success is that if you're using solvent by either choice or necessity for fit your application, there is a future. You need to verify the removal of all the manufacturing or other soils from the final product used in your process, and that the process does not contribute to EH&S concern issues. You don't want to change from one solvent that may be outlawed again in the future very quickly. You have time to consider this change, but the change is going to happen, and I can assure you it is going to happen. The EH&S concerns need to be looked at first. The solvent process. Should you change or should you stay? There's an old song by The Clash called Should I Stay or Should I Go? And that's exactly what the solvent process. You need to look at that and evaluate what options are available to you. And any options of change, will that affect your production issues? That needs to be strongly considered. And again, the bottom line is the total operational cost is a factor that we all deal with. So what do you want to accomplish? Well, obviously you want to make things better. You want to move to environmentally green cleaning process. So you want to future-proof your options best as possible. And how do you do this? Replacement technology. And it is on the market today. The alternatives, the A section of this presentation, in my professional opinion, you have 3 viable options to consider. If you're going to stay with solvent, and these solvents that you're using are being phased out or restricted, you can switch to an alternative solvent. A second move, if you don't want to stay with solvent, you could look at an aqueous process, and that in fact requires much more homework and new equipment and new processing. Or you could consider vacuum degreasing technology. This is the fastest growing technology for solvent cleaning on the market today on a global scale. That again requires different chemistry and different equipment. So we're going to discuss the options very quickly. Number one, you could replace the existing solvent with another type in your degreaser. Obviously, the more modern degreasers work much better, much more solvent efficient, etc. So if you replace that solvent, you need to consider the system that you're using it in. There are several different solvents on the market today. There's trans blends, HFOs, HFEs. A lot of these solvents can be dropped into existing machine fairly easily. Some of these solvents, such as the trans blends, may have future issues, but for the current next several years, they're probably the easiest choice to make. You need to look at your degreaser. Are you better served by changing and converting to a new modern degreaser, which uses less solvent, it's more energy efficient, and most of them have all automatic process controls to take the area of operator use out of it. And they offer improved EH&S concerns. All of this is a plus for the user. The second option, you could convert the process from solvent to aqueous if possible. Sometimes it's not possible due to a lot of different features of the aqueous cleaning process. But aqueous cleaning processes have different advantages, and that needs to be considered. But you also have different waste streams. If you look at the very bottom, you've got soils coming in that must be removed, or the bath is going to deteriorate, have to be replaced periodically. You've got air emissions, you've got water considerations that must be accepted and worked on. Future-proof your option number 3. You can convert to vacuum degreasing technology. This is the future of solvent cleaning today. Most people that are using solvent and trying to change from the traditional solvents are looking at vacuum degreasing technology that uses modified alcohol or a hydrocarbon. There's many commercial systems available from different vendors, different models, different features, all to suit your application needs. If you've not seen a vacuum degreasing system in operation, I've got a short video here I'm going to play for you, and it basically shows the parts being processed in KYZEN's Metalnox 6386 modified alcohol. The machine basically is an enclosed type machine. The work is loaded inside the chamber. The door is sealed, isolating the process from the operator and the ambient environment. And then a vacuum is pulled on the system, and then the process is started. That process can feature rotation or oscillation. It can feature spray and air applications, or it can be an immersion with sonics or turbulation under the immersion. And the flexibility of these systems allow you to program all the different type of cycles as needed to fit your production needs. And why vacuum degreasing? The key benefits: it offers better cleaning for a lot of different reasons for both, especially for both polar and non-polar soils. It's green, zero emissions under vacuum operations, and the parts come out dry. This is a huge plus. Lower operating costs, lower energy, lower solvent consumption because the machine is sealed up and very little to the atmosphere. And it's safe. It's been approved by different organizations. And if you look at the icons on the bottom, you'll see the global approval for this solvents worldwide. The marketing trends, again, if you're using solvent, most people are moving to environmentally green cleaning processes, especially for complex and challenging parts where water cannot be used or water will not penetrate. And again, if you get water into something, you also have to get it out. So the drying is extremely difficult. You can move away from the legacy solvents that are being restricted or phased out by the EPA. Water-based processes, existing systems do offer challenging effects for a lot of different things: consumption, discharge, energy residue, and cost of operation. A lot of people are moving toward these closed vacuum systems that are beneficial to the end producer. So no matter which way you find the alternatives, you need to calculate the end cost: the cost of compliance, the cost of change of process, the cost of quality, and the cost of operations. All these must be considered for the bottom line. And remember, the EPA clock is ticking on the traditional solvents as we outlined. Helpful hints: you need to look at environmental compliance because non-compliance is not an option. The EPA is going to assure that. And you need to look before you leap. You need to form your team, perform trials, test. There's nothing like testing parts before you actually change your production process to ensure that the quality is met, the production throughput is met, and the EH&S concerns are in compliance. Make sure you find the right fit. You still have time to make your plans, but the clock is ticking. These traditional solvents are going to sunset probably within the next 1 to 2 years. Examine your alternatives. Get advice from a business you can trust. And above all, make the right financial choice. And please look before you leap, because while any future forecast is uncertain, the move to phase out several solvents is certain and underway now. You saw the timelines. The clock is ticking. Don't be caught waiting. KYZEN can help you clear your hurdles. And the best deal of the day, our assistance is free. All you have to do is contact us. And with that, I'd like to thank you for your time today, and please feel free to ask any questions.
Thanks, Joe. If you would like to discuss this topic further, please contact your local KYZEN representative or send an email to tech@kyzen.com. And we will have one of our cleaning experts schedule a follow-up with you as soon as possible. Again, we thank you all for joining us today, and we hope to see you again soon. Stay safe, stay healthy, and have a great day.